What's up, Guardians? Glad to have you with Drew. And in today's video, I'll be showing you how to take a classic exotic armor piece to the next level with this prismatic hunter build that will have you slaying out with high DPS numbers, constantly being radiant and weakening our enemies, filling those transcendence and super meters at a high pace rate, all while being able to stay alive with great damage resistance from constant frost armor and void overshields to be able to conquer that tough in-game content. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the build. Lucky Pants is the exotic armor piece we'll be using for this build. Now, without having to read all of that, basically Lucky Pants is going to allow you, if you have a hand cannon that does kinetic damage or matches your equipped super, it's going to allow it to have extreme damage output. And I'm going to show you how to do it without the most common way that's been showed. First, to understand the way this exotic piece works, your hand cannon has to be fully loaded. After switching back to it, you will get illegally modded holster. This will give us 5 seconds to hit as many shots to get as much damage boost as possible. Getting to a stack of 10 will allow us to have 600% damage. Once out of luck is spawned, you're going to have a 10-second cooldown. Basically switching to a different weapon, and that cooldown has now been gone, we can now switch back and regain the buff. If you're new to the game or your RNGs has been absolutely terrible, you can visit Raul at the tower and he'll say, "Yes, Guardian, what puzzles do you bear?" Go to Focus Decoding, switch on over to the last page here, and for 1 exotic Ingram and 1 exotic Cypher, you can grab yourself a pair of Lucky Pants. To get excellent use out of Lucky Pants, it's all about the hand cannon of choice. For this build, we'll be using the brand new hand cannon from the Final Shape, Bold Endings. It's a heavy burst hand cannon, which is great at getting us to the stack of 10 for maximum damage output. It's also a legendary hand cannon, so it will not take up our exotic weapon slot. It's craftable with a great combination of perks for those that don't have the God Roll Warden's Law, but also does darkness damage, which allows us not to have to sacrifice a fragment for transcendence energy. Its weapon type matches our super, which allows us to use harmonic mods at a cheaper energy cost. And it also has Dealer's Choice Origin trait. Combine this with Overcharged Armory, we'll get that bonus damage percentage when stasis isn't the surge for activities like Lost Sectors and Grandmaster Nightfalls. And this can be very important because selecting Overload Hand Cannon will give it that boost. However, this will allow us not to pierce through barrier champions' shields while radiant, and we'll be radiant all the time with this build, so we're going to want to have our hand cannon be able to do that damage, as we will use a different perk to take care of overloads when they are in activity. And this is very important as Destiny does not do a very good job explaining the definition of how to actually damage champions, especially to new players and even some veteran players. Go ahead and drop a like if you didn't know that before watching this video. Now, as I go through the build, I will be showing how everything pairs together, so if you happen to miss something, don't worry, I will have links down in the description for the build. Starting off, we'll be starting with our aspect of Stylus Executioner. This will allow us to turn invisible by defeating any targets by any elemental debuffs. This even includes debuffs from our weapons. Next up, we're going to be selecting Winter's Shroud. When dodging near targets, it slows the enemies. It also stuns Overload champions. Any enemies slowed will give us increased class ability rejuvenation, which is going to pair extremely well with our fragment selection of Facet of Hope. Anytime we have a Void Overshield, we are invisible, radiant, or have frost armor, which will be pretty much all the time. This is going to allow us to get our class ability back a lot faster to use our dodge, which will be Gambler's Dodge. Anytime this is used near enemies, it grants us a powered melee right back. For our abilities, we'll be selecting the Snare Bomb and the Magnetic Grenade. This is going to pair extremely well with Facet of Dominance, which is going to allow our Void Grenades to now weaken targets. With both abilities being able to weaken targets, our weapons are going to do a ton more damage. It's going to make it very easy to turn invisible. It's also going to pair very well with this perk from our Journal, which will then allow us to get a Void Overshield anytime these Void debuffed enemies are defeated. And with full Void Overshields, along with 5 stacks of Frost Armor, it's going to make us extremely hard for us to die.
Death can have me when it earns me.
Next, we'll be selecting Facet of Dawn. This is going to allow us to get Radiant anytime we hit an enemy with a powered melee. This is going to pair extremely well with Radiant Orbs. Do note that when hitting an enemy with a powered melee, this only grants Radiant for 5 seconds, and picking up an orb is going to grant it for 10. However, once this is active from Radiant Orbs, reapplying this with a powered melee will reset the clock to 10 seconds. So just go ahead and use this wisely when you are using this in combat. That way you can keep this buff active as long as possible. That way we don't run into any issues with barrier champions, and we are constantly doing as much damage as possible. Our final 2 fragments will be selecting Facet of Protection. This is going to give us more damage resistance when nearby enemies, and then also selecting Facet of Purpose. Anytime we pick up an orb, this will grant us frost armor. Then we can stack this up to 5 times as mentioned before. And for our super, obviously we're going to be selecting Silence and Squall to match the stasis weapon of our hand cannon. This is an excellent super that's going to have great AoE control. It's going to freeze and slow enemies. It's also going to give us that frost armor to match with Facet of Purpose. For weapons, I mean, it's really optional. I mean, Indebted Kindness, you can never go wrong. If there's unstoppable champions in the activity, I do go with one of the new rocket sidearms. You can also go with a grenade launcher if you'd like. I do also like Still Hunt. But for me, the number one choice, pretty much what I've been running the whole time, is going to be Choir of One with the stabilizing rounds. This is excellent because it's going to spread volatile. It just creates tons of explosions. It's also super easy to go invisible with this perk. This is the catalyst that I've been choosing to run. I mean, power weapons, basically the same thing, completely optional. My personal favorite has been Edge Transit. Using this with Choir of One, you're able to use Expanding Abyss from the journal, and we're weakening everything, so we get that extra damage from void weapons. You can go with Pro Memoria, which is craftable with some excellent perks like Reconstruction and Bait and Switch. Also has Dealer's Choice, so it will always get that extra damage output in things like Grandmaster Nightfalls. You could use Whisper Worm. That way you can take out barriers a different way. Depending on your secondary, you can use your power weapon as an exotic. So completely up to you, but this is what I've chose to run. For stats, I went with tier 10 resilience and discipline. Tier 8 mobility is plenty. We're going to be getting plenty of class ability regeneration. So that was where I went with that. Then went with tier 4 at intellect and tier 3 to get that base cooldown return for our powered melee. Also with some mods. Key ones to point out, I do like having Siphon for stasis and void for my weapons to make sure that I'm getting as many orbs generated as possible with a heavy ammo finder. Also for the arms, I did go with a stasis reloader so we can get that hand cannon reloaded faster. Another one I did point out, I do go with only one stasis weapon surge, and then I use a stasis holster. That's pretty key when using this type of build, because anytime we switch back to our hand cannon, we want it to be fully loaded to get the damage boost from Lucky Pants. It sucks anytime you do switch weapons when you need to get something done. Switch back to that hand cannon, and then it isn't fully loaded, and now we are not going to get the buff. So that stasis holster is excellent mod to choose from. Gameplay loop, I mean, pretty simple. Just always got to pay attention to the out of luck. Just make sure whenever you have that debuff, I don't really use the hand cannon that much. I mean, it's a great weapon. It still shreds, red bar enemies by itself. But typically I'll be shredding out with Choir of One. Make sure I get one of our abilities on them to weaken them, because either ability will weaken. Switch to the hand cannon, get up to the damage 10 as quick as possible. I mean, it does excellent numbers. Expanding Abyss with the weakening is fantastic. So Choir of One's going to shred with it. Then switching to Edge Transit, it's just going to literally just clear rooms. We get Transcendence very quickly, as you can see the meter right here on the screen. I mean, we just get light and darkness damage just combined so well. We do tons of damage, so we generate tons of super energy. So don't hold back on your abilities. Use them when you have them, because we have great regeneration. I mean, fantastic build. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I've been having a lot of fun with it. I always just try to find different things, try out new weapons, and just try to put together a strong build. Everything I test is in harder content. So I appreciate everyone coming by, watching the video today. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video, and I hope to see you on the next one.